Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report. Trusted, timely, tradition.
Improvements in drought conditions have led to better news about crops in recent weeks. But the latest drought monitor shows drought continues to grip a huge part of the Midwest. 64% of corn and 57% of the soybean crop is in D1 to D4 drought, just a slight improvement from a week ago. And that same trend is true in Nebraska, where Michelle Rook reports some farmers say the ongoing drought is shaping up to be worse than the one they faced a decade ago.
There ain't much for moisture there.
This is the second drought Ryan Ebrine has seen in his farming career. The first was in 2012, but he says this year has been tougher with the lack of subsoil moisture this spring.
This was worse than that year. I mean, when we were planting this year, we struggled just to find moisture.
Bart Ruth farms in central Nebraska, the epicenter of the drought.
This year is by far the driest in my career. Just no moisture over winter and no moisture this spring.
In fact, many Nebraskans are facing year number 2 of drought.
Into central Nebraska, most of that part of the state is under severe drought. And the further east you go, basically we're seeing almost all of the eastern 1/3 of Nebraska in extreme to exceptional drought. And that has slowly been increasing in spatial coverage over the last couple months.
And the onset came earlier than last year or 2012, so irrigation pivots have been running for several weeks.
We started mid-May and I think we're on pass number 6 on corn already. So, we're expecting twice as much water to be applied during the growing season this year as in the average year.
While some recent rains in parts of Nebraska have improved overall crop conditions in the state, farmers tell me they've already lost top-end yield potential on those irrigated acres. And as far as dry land crops, the rains came too late, at least for corn.
You get a hot 90-degree day, in the afternoon you look at that corn, it's all pineappled up, looking, not good at all. So the top-end yield is for sure gone there, and I say at least 25%, 30%, somewhere in there.
There's plants out there 4 inches tall and 1st of July, and so they won't amount to anything. So, we'll have some acres that are zeroed out. Once a crop's dead, it's not going to be revived no matter how much water you put on it.
And the latest drought monitor shows 86% of corn and 93% of beans in Nebraska are in D1 to D4 level drought. So production potential has been compromised.
Even with regular rainfall, dryland crops are going to have a tough go of it. They started off with very little to no moisture in the soil profile this growing season, and that means there's not a lot of moisture to tap into for those crops as the season progresses.
The exceptional dryness has also hurt this year's forage crops and pasture conditions.
I was hoping for a bale per acre, and it's half of that. We're getting, we normally get 3.5, 4 bale per acre on a good year. So our grass, our hay crops just, next to nothing right now. So we're kind of going to be in a bind here for feed.
And so he's been forced to cull even more cattle from his herd.
We cut back from 100 cows down to below 80, and I've gotten rid of another 10 now, and now we got to go back through and look again, and any cow that looks cross-eyed at you that's not real good probably needs to go.
And Nebraska isn't alone. Nearly 64% of the Midwest is also in D1 to D4 level drought, up slightly from the previous week. So the recent rains in those areas have not been drought busting.
I don't think that the rain in some of those areas was greater than usual. And so the bottom line is that we are still looking at an environment here that is not real conducive for serious relief to the drought.
In fact, 64% of the U.S. corn crop is in drought and 57% of the soybeans. Lerner says there's already been yield loss, and the forecast for the balance of the growing season may not reverse the damage.
We'll have some timely rain, but not necessarily normal rain until rather late in the season, which suggests that we may have a problem with getting the largest kernel sizes on these ears, and we may still have a risk of not completely filling some of the ears in the drier biased areas.
So while USDA lowered national corn yield by 4 bushels per acre in the July report, there may be further cuts ahead. I'm Michelle Rook for U.S. Farm Report.
So where does livestock stand with all of the uncertainty about drought and grains? We'll discuss it with our marketing panel, Michelle Rook, Arlen Suderman, and Dwayne Bussey, next. And later, John Phipps rocks the mailbag with a question about AC or DC.